Well, welcome to this week's Chasing Giants podcast, live from Shipshewana, Indiana. I just returned home from this 3-day show, got the car unpacked, and found out that all of you helped us raise over $41,000 for Lester's Feet Foundation. So thank you so much. You're going to actually see part of that fundraiser with the live auction during the podcast. So thank you all. But also just a warning. We had an interference problem with the audio in the building, and unfortunately there is a buzz in the audio. Couldn't do nothing about it. Steve Shields ran it through his software and tried to reduce it down as much as possible. It's as good as we can get it, but it's still a great episode. There's still a lot of good information, some laughs, a video of Don that you're not going to want to miss, but I apologize about the buzzing in the audio. I hope you guys understand trying to record inside of a big arena is a tough task, but put up with the buzzing, listen to it. We got Wes Stinson at the end for this week's Sunday Night Prayer Time. Thanks for your support. I'm really humbled, and we're going to be able to help a lot of families. Thanks.
Chasing Giants with Don Higgins and Terry Peer. Brought to you by Asio Camo, nature's most lethal camouflage. Follow along as Don and Terry discuss the techniques, strategies, and dedication needed to harvest one of God's most amazing creations, world-class whitetails.
Well, welcome to Shipshewana 2025 live podcast. Don, we're going to get right to it. We got a full program. We need to get out of here in about an hour and 15 minutes tonight because we want all of these folks who have packed into this arena tonight to get back out. There's a building full of great exhibitors. The show has grown a bunch since last year, and we want to give time for everybody to get back out there. But what about the town of Shipshewana? We keep coming back here every year. It's one of our favorites.
Man, this is my kind of place. I'll tell you, I've not seen the first purple-haired freak, and I've not seen a rainbow flag yet. Awesome.
I think the voting demographic of everyone at this show is probably in line with what we did. But first of all, we want to first thank FAE for sponsoring the Midwest Sportsmans Classic. We've been talking about this show for probably about 3 months and hyping this thing up. And I just got word before we started the podcast that we set a record for opening day attendance. Is that right, Derek? Opening day attendance was bigger than we've ever had, and usually the first day is pretty light. And here we got the entire lower level filled and even some of the upper level filled. So thank you guys for coming out with bad weather, and I hope we're going to put on a pretty good show tonight. I think this is going to be fun.
Well, if we get good questions, it'll be a good show. So it's up to all you guys. Come up with some good questions. You know, at me, it doesn't matter if it's deer hunting, politics, or religion. I'm ready. Fire away.
So if you guys are normal listeners of our podcast, we've just started this new segment called Higgins on the Hot Seat that 360 helps us with. Just think of it as this entire episode tonight is Higgins on the Hot Seat, because we have no idea what you're going to bring to us. But we're really happy and honored that Joe Miles is here. You know, we get a couple opportunities to hang out with Joe, but he's brought his whole marketing team to this show. They have probably one of the largest booths in the entire arena and full of all of your stuff. And it's really important for you guys at trade shows being consumer direct that people can come there, try it on, touch and feel, get their sizes right, and they can even buy at the booth and then it ships to them later.
Yeah, 100%. We're so happy with the show. You know, we didn't know what we were getting into the first year, came up here, met Derek and all the guys, had the Legends Roundtable, which was amazing. But the support from the Shipshewana crowd and the surrounding areas has been unbelievable. And I definitely come for the show, but those rise and roll donuts,
donuts
is a highlight. I look forward to that every year.
So Austin Razor and I were on a consulting visit. Austin travels with me a lot when I go on consulting visit, and he told me the other day, he said, Terry, you're missing the boat at Shipshewana. He said, you should have had a contest for all of those folks, and they would have won something for the best pastry they brought you. He said they would have packed the place, and you and Joe and Don would have been sitting there eating cherry pie and donuts and fried pies.
Asio's sponsoring that next year.
So maybe next year we will have a best baked good and pastry competition for some free Asio gear. Can we?
That's done. It's on record. Everybody has seen it. It's recorded. That's happening.
You take some cherry
pie. Cherry pie. I'll be the judge of the cherry pies.
All right. Well, this event is a little bit different this year, and this is kind of the kickoff tonight. The Legends group as a whole has different segments throughout the weekend. So tonight's just the podcast. Tomorrow is a breakout session, 2 different ones. You and Bobby Worthington are gonna go and talk a little bit about what you guys. I think you're gonna focus on woodsmanship in that one, right?
Yeah, just kind of how things have changed over the years. Obviously, Bobby is a pioneer, one of the best woodsmen, in North America, one of the best hunters I've hung around with, and we're just gonna kind of break down, going kind of back in time to the return of how he used to do it, kind of the old school way, and it's pretty fascinating stuff.
Yeah. And then after in the evening tomorrow, the Wenzel brothers are going to get up, and I think the segment is called Campfire Stories. And for those of you who were here last year and got a taste of the Wenzel brothers, you're going to have basically an hour and a half of these two. And I'm supposed to have the job of moderating them, and I don't know how that's even possible. So I think I'm just going to mute my mic and just let them go. I don't really have a role in that segment. Those two guys kind of take care of themselves. And then finally, I think after that event, correct me if I'm wrong, I know we're live here, Derek, but at the end of the Wenzel brothers tomorrow, all the legends are going to come up here for a couple questions, and that's the only time that we're all going to be on the stage together. And then Saturday, I believe you and Al Foster are going to talk about chasing giants out in the Midwest and farm country, I believe.
Yep, my mentor Al. He'll I don't know if he's here yet, but he was supposed to be here this evening, and really looking forward to that.
So what you guys told us last year with the Legends Roundtable is you loved it, but you wanted more of it. So our goal this year was to kind of divide and get you guys more of a taste of each of these guys with more time individually. And we're really excited to bring a lot of different programs to you over the week or weekend. So we got a surprise, and I was going to do it a little bit later, but I think we just need to kick this show off. And Steve, you guys kind of start prepping. We don't need to go real fast because they got to get their camera gear kind of moved over. But we're going to go over in front of this big red curtain over here. And this is kind of, go ahead, you guys go first. We're going to go around kind of to the front of this thing. And this has been in the works for a long time, folks. And I don't know if the right word is humbled or excited, or maybe it's all of that together. But this is the unveiling a very good friend of Don's that I've become good friends of, Mark Fisher, the owner of 360 Blinds. It's just become a special relationship that we've had for many years. And they've been a partner of the show. They've been a partner. They've helped us with our consulting clients with programs for that. You're a distributor dealer for them. It's the blinds we hunt out of. It's more than just a sponsor with any of our partners. But this conversation started coming a few months ago, or excuse me, about a year ago. And then a few months ago, it started getting more serious. And we brought Joe into the loop on this conversation, and it just took off. And this is the grand unveiling of something that is going to be, I don't know, I just get giddy thinking about it. But I think to make this even better for everybody, can you all help us a little bit? We're going to have Don and Joe unveil this, but can you guys give us like a big countdown from 5? Are you guys up for a little participation? Because it's going to make the audio really cool, okay? So let's do a countdown from 5, and then Don and Joe will rip this thing off, and hopefully purple-haired freak will jump out or something at Don and give him a hug.
Know.
All right, so when we get ready, we're going to count down from 5. Ready? 5. 4, 3, 2, 1.
There you go.
Man, look at that.
So this is the Chasing Giants edition 360 blind wrapped in Asio Camo. And Joe, this is the first time you have seen this.
Wow.
So I actually wanted Joe to see it for the first time live in front of everybody.
And it is amazing.
And this is metal siding. This is
Metal siding.
wood or plastic. It's metal.
Absolutely nailed it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So Joe and the folks at 360 started talking about this and worked out. Joe, how many different samples did you have to go through for the camouflage pattern to view this and proof it?
Mark and I are buddies, but how, I don't know. we did a bunch of files.
All right, so I want you guys to actually go inside, check it out, kick the tires a little bit. Here's some basic specs on this blind. I saw this blind under construction over in Pennsylvania a couple weeks ago. This blind is Don and I got to give some really cool feedback on what we wanted out of this, and this blind is actually 6 inches taller than all other 360 blinds, so it's 78-inch tall walls. So you guys that like to bow hunt out of these and stand up, it's going to be phenomenal. Clear and tinted window panes so you can drop down that low light hunting. Extra large peep windows. So this was really important to me, and I didn't realize it until after I had back surgery, but when I'm setting for a long time, I have to stand up. And most box blinds, when I go to stand up, I spend all of my time bending over looking out of a blind. So how they designed with the taller walls, this extra peep window, so from the back you can see out and still have a larger, so you see how the window's taller than the standard. You still have a one-piece window and your peep window to shoot bow out. So this is, guys, this is not going to be a big production run. This is a very limited run that we're going to do. We're actually going to set up with a new landing page on the 360 Blind website starting right in this podcast. I think it actually goes live while we're in here. And if you want to hold your spot for a production model on this year, we can take that production spot deposit for $250. The retail price of these, it's not going to be cheap, guys. This is a premium blind. It's going to be fully assembled and shipped to your newest dealer for $5,500. Okay, but fully wrapped in Asio metal. Underneath of it is the same composite wood material that's on a regular 360 blind. But you got a taller on your 7 foot wide. Don, what do you think about this thing?
Fantastic. You forgot to mention the foam lined sound deadening inside.
Yep.
And look at this, Chasing Giants series.
Yeah. So you guys will be able to come up and look at it after the podcast. There's a couple different changes that we made with sound deadening on the inside that Don mentioned. So as the guys make their way back up on the stage, we're going to talk about this a little bit more, and the guys can get the cameras over. Joe, as you walk by, one of the biggest concerns I had was the color shade. Did they nail it as far as the tin print?
It's absolutely perfect. It is the exact Asio pattern.
So Don, as Joe makes his way over here, this year kind of marks a little bit of a different, I guess, phase of the Chasing Giants brand. This month, 10 years ago, you asked me to rebrand Real World Wildlife Products for you. It's 10 years ago this month. And 3.5 years ago, 260 episodes ago, we started Chasing Giants, and the kind of the family that formed around this not only really helped Real World, but it really helped a family of companies that kind of rallied together. What's it mean to get to the point that it was an idea and a brand, and now another company actually has your logo setting on something, coming full circle to this point in your career and in your brand development of this?
Well, you know, I've said many times that you dream big because God's reality is bigger than anything you can imagine, and this is just a perfect example. You know, I can remember back walking into Dwayne Hopkins' office about 18 years ago with an idea that I wanted to start another food plot seed company, and didn't know Dwayne, didn't know anybody at that company, and it's just exploded. We've got around 300 dealers across the country, but as we grew, we also developed partnerships with companies like 360 and Asio, and we've worked together. You know, our success is Asio's success, their success is ours, as well as 360, Brenton Firearms, and a lot of other the companies that we work with.
Joe, you walked into the booth today knowing that this would be unveiled. You saw it for the first time. You walked by the Brenton booth and saw a wrapped 6mm arc that's actually my gun that we had built in the Brenton booth, wrapped in Asio. You started with an idea to start a camo company in a completely saturated market. I mean, of all things, if I was your business advisor, I would have told you were crazy to go find something else. Now you're making a real legitimate dent in the whitetail apparel line. You're making traction. Your brand is well known, and now you got other products with your camo pattern on it. How special is that?
Don nailed it. A dream, walking through the woods and coming up with the camo pattern idea, and going from that to the 4 a.m. wake-up calls to the 10:30 at night, returning emails, messages, and grinding, and getting guys that say it's never going to work, it's not going to happen, and get nervous about that, and just continuing to fight and go, and now to see what it has turned into, it's almost like it's not real. It's just a real blessing and something that we're very, very proud of. And a lot of that goes to you guys right here. The first group that we really partnered up, we're young. We're 4 years in. And the first group that we partnered up with was you guys. And not knowing how you would receive the product, right? You guys tried it out for a season before you even said, hey, we want to use it. And after you used it for a while, you said you wanted to. And it just... what you guys have done for us, the Chasing Giants brand, has helped us so much, and we're more appreciative than you know. So yeah, it is quite fascinating what has happened, and we could not be more humbled and appreciative of that.
And that's why I said before we unveiled it, I don't know that the right word is excited or humbled, and it's probably both.
Yeah.
Because to think that we were all smart enough to get to this point without divine intervention, I think is impossible. But here's where it all comes back full circle, people, and this is where before Joe leaves, and I want to make this known. All of our companies believe that the reason that we have these blessings is because we've tried to put others first. And this first blind, serial number 0, we're going to try to do that with that tonight, actually this weekend. So who's been to this show before? Raise your hand if you've been to this show before. Okay. Who knows Kenny that walks around the booth for tag out? Raise your hand if you know Kenny. Kenny is a very dear, special friend of ours that's battling cancer right now. And this afternoon we got to start talking, and we got Mark Fisher, the owner of 360 Blinds, on the phone. And this is what we're going to do. And trust us, it's a last minute thing. It's typical how Don and I roll. We don't plan things out very far. This blind is going to be here all weekend for you guys to look at, get in, and see. But over in the Cloverleaf booth, who's the 360 blind dealer here at the show, there's going to be a silent auction for this blind. Okay? All of the legends from the Legends Roundtable are going to sign this blind before we leave here today. And Mark Fisher has agreed that all the proceeds from this blind through Lester's feet are going to go to Kenny and helping him. So we want to raise money in this community for this community. And Kenny is such a special, dear friend of ours. You talk about the life of the party on a show floor during move-in. Everybody's always stressed out, and here comes Kenny with a smile on his face to cheer you up. It's awesome that, it's cool that we got our name or our camo on this, but it's even better that we get to use this to impact somebody's life that needs it.
And that's what we're about. We've always wanted to use our platform to help others. We've been extremely blessed, and we've said many times on the podcast that if you want to be blessed, be a blessing. And we're trying to be a blessing to others. And, it may be that the only thing we get out of it's that good feeling in our heart, but that's enough. So just another way we're trying to use Chasing Giants to help others.
All right. So, again, after the podcast is over, you're going to be able to come up, look at the blind. I believe we're going to put it out, maybe out by the front doors or somewhere. where everybody will be able to see it the rest of the weekend. Go to the Cloverleaf booth and bid on this thing. It's going to be you sign your name and bid, and you'll be able to see where it's at. Guys, this blind is a one-of-a-kind. It's going to have signatures on this blind of people that are pioneers in the industry, which doesn't mean me. My name won't be on it. That means the real pioneers that are here with the legends. But it's going to have an impact on somebody's life. And you'll be able to get this thing at your house, but more importantly, make a difference in somebody's life. Thank you to 360 Blinds. I don't know where the team of people are from 360. Mark is not able to be here. I think he's having a baby this week. Is that right?
Wow.
Is that right?
If Mark's having a baby, that's something.
Yeah, how'd he pull that off?
In Key West.
In Key West.
In Key West. So he's not able to be here, but thank you for the folks at 360. Thank you, Asio.
Thank you, guys.
This is the ultimate of B2B here, isn't it?
It truly is. And thank everybody for being here and coming out and supporting this. This is an incredible event.
All right, so we're going to transition to the next segment of our podcast. Again, Cloverleaf, go kick the tires on this and bid high. Thank you, Joe. We'll be right back. All right, so we're going to talk for a little bit. Now's the time to get your questions ready. So everybody who has a question, every single time it's the same one. It's like the first guy has to do it. Nobody ever wants to be the first one. And if I have to call Aiden Miller up here to ask the first question, since I embarrassed his brother in Mount Hope the other week, I might have to do it, because if I made one brother mad, I get to make the other brother mad. But yeah, start making your way around here to the microphone. Again, hold your hand up if you don't want to be on camera. And, Don, Joe's been a good friend for several years, but it's kind of cool to bring all this together and have multiple companies. I mean, Brenton's got ARs with Asio Camo in there this year. So, I mean, it's just really cool to see all this happen.
Yeah, just looking at that blind, there's 3 companies represented there, 360, Asio, and then you got Chasing Giants, the brand on right above the door there that, we kind of brought it together. And, we're not making anything on these blinds, but it's just kind of cool to bring those friends together and see them succeed.
All right. What do you guys think? Round of applause for us. Does it look good? I think they did a fantastic job with it, so I'm excited for y'all to go up and see the metal work and get to see the inside, see these windows. The cool part about this double pane window is and when the sun's up, you can leave the dark windows down, but if it gets dark, you put those light windows up and just have the glass in. So kind of versatile when it comes to that. We're not getting anybody coming up for questions.
Well, you guys, this is only going to be as good as you make it. So if we have to start calling out names, Terry, I see enough people out there who I know their names that we can start calling out names.
This is actually the first time my family's ever been to one of our live podcasts. I could even make my wife and my daughter come up here. That would be really fun.
That'd be a good start.
Yeah. They're both shaking their head at me.
Yeah.
Unlike Ray Miller, I'm not going to push my luck with that one.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to live with her.
So let's talk about consulting a little bit. We got some snow on the ground right now. What do you got going on with consulting this week as you're in northern Indiana?
Well, I started earlier in the week up in Michigan and worked my way south and got here yesterday afternoon. But going to do another one tomorrow here locally, about a 60-acre property. So it was just a good opportunity to get up at daylight and walk that property tomorrow morning while I'm right here. But be home for a day and then on the road to Iowa this coming week.
As you're looking at your trail camera, is there any of your bucks still got antlers on them?
Yeah, my guess would be that right now about 60% have shed on my place, so probably a little over half.
I talked to Joe Johnson. He said he'd walked over 100 miles already. And how many sheds did he say he found?
I think 20-some.
20-something?
Already.
Unbelievable. Leon is our resident Asio pants model of the show.
So, Don, this is for you and Terry as well. What has been your biggest God moment in hunting over the last years that you've been deer hunting?
Wow, you should have asked me that one about 30 minutes ago. Let me think about it. Yeah, probably the biggest thing for me is it wasn't one moment, but it's been just the change in myself over the 45 years, more than that, almost 50 years I've been deer hunting, and it's still an important part of my life. But as I get older, and I love to chase big bucks as much today as I ever did, but the older I get, the more I realize that people's the most important thing. The people that I've met through hunting, the people I try to help, through consulting, my magazine articles, things like that. I think God has just opened my eyes over time that, once I was absolutely obsessed with deer hunting. My daughter's right here in the front row. She'll probably tell you when she was a kid that Christmas time, Thanksgiving, it didn't matter. Right after lunch, Dad was grabbing the bow and running out the door to go sit in a tree somewhere. And that doesn't happen today. And I didn't always have my priorities in order. I think the biggest God moment is the fact that he was patient with me and gave me time to open my eyes to what was really important.
The whole thing is a God moment. I think if everybody's honest, if they have a relationship with Jesus and believe in creation, sitting in that tree stand, looking out in front of you from a squirrel doing an acrobatic triple sow cow from one limb to another, to a turkey walking by, to a bobcat, to every single critter, and understanding how they work together in an ecosystem, you look at God's creation and say how complicated it was to make all of that work. And then you step back a second and say how simple he made salvation. And if we're all honest with ourselves about a God moment, it is we look out across every minute that we're in a tree stand and say, wow, look at the power of God and how complicated and magical he made everything work together, and then he made salvation work to where an idiot like me has a chance of getting it by grace. That's the cool part. We might have to play another video, Steve. Are we able to do that? So I got to tell you all a story. I need you all to start lining up here to get a question. Seriously, I'm going to ad-lib filler here. So I got to tell you an inside story about Don and I. So last week we were making fun of him in shorts on the podcast, and I said, "Were you in shorts?" And he said, "You know what, Terry? I got this picture of me in shorts, and you can use it if you want." But he said, "Robin's going to kill me if we use it." And I looked at the picture and I'm like, "Yep, she's going to kill you. I'm taking one for you. I am not going to show that picture. And we're not going to show it tonight." But I was talking to Robin, and actually, Don, I want you to stand up and stand up right there.
This is going to be good.
Yeah. So Robin actually sent me some security footage from the back of the house, and you guys know Don has this big switchgrass field in the back, and we're going to play this video of the security footage of Don in the switchgrass field that no one has ever seen before, because Don was almost going to show this picture of Robin.
Yeah. Chasing Giants. 2025 gonna come alive, cause some big deer gonna die. Real world and Asio, you better know.
I practiced for a month for that, people. I practiced for a month.
Beans, clover, and Nutri-Crave corn. We live in that real world life in the morn. Chasing giants, it's what we do. Chasing giants, how about you? Wash the clothes, shoot the bows. We getting ready to face the nose.
Security footage from the back of the house, folks.
She caught me. She caught me.
Time to go. Hit the horns, blow that beat.
Enough.
Chasing giants, attack. Chasing giants.
We have to thank Ty Miller and Dan Pfeiffer for that contribution to tonight's podcast. Your face is red, brother.
I owe you one now.
You owe me several, but that one's going to be a doozy. Thanks for taking one for the team, partner.
I can't believe one picture I sent you led to that.
We've been sitting on that video for probably 4 weeks waiting to figure out how to use it. So, all right, well, we got a question. Let's get to it.
I think the only thing that could have made that video better is if you're wearing a shirt that said Buck Pimp on it.
Yeah, or a purple wig, maybe.
Hey, that too. My question for both of you is how to age a deer on the foot, a big buck on the feet when it's walking through the woods. I know you're a fan of the king buck method, but is there any other ones that you're fond of?
Well, I don't believe you can just look at a wild deer and tell how old he is. I mean, you can tell yearlings and most of the time 2-year-olds, but once they get 3 and older, it's impossible unless you have a history with that deer. So if you ever hear me give a buck's age, it's because I've got history with him. Or I may say, I'm guessing he's probably at least 4 years old or whatever, but it's impossible. Especially, you know, in the early fall and in the rut, when those older bucks are really beefed up, you know, their necks are swollen and everything, then it becomes a little easier to tell like a 3-year-old from an older buck. But, you know, during the summer, this time of the year in the winter, it's really difficult. So, yeah, I don't know who started it on the internet or magazines years ago, age this deer, but just my experience with the captive deer years ago, I can tell you that probably those guys are wrong at least as much, if not more, than they're right.
I think for those listeners who are fairly new to the podcast or haven't listened to it, he just referenced the king buck theory, and it's kind of a pun or a running joke as we've had this podcast for several years. There's this literally a guy that was at a trade show saying that any mature buck would never lift his leg and show his undercarriage if he was the most dominant buck in the woods. So if you saw a buck lift his leg to scratch his ear and show his giblies, he was not the king buck. Don't shoot it, there's one bigger. So when he referenced the king buck, that was the joke if you didn't know the inside track on it. So you can age him when you put him in the back of the truck and send his teeth off. How about that one?
Works for me.
Next question. Thank you very much. Let's get some lines behind him, guys. Come on. Uh-oh. We got a... Here, do we...
Oh, yeah.
This is a drone.
A drone?
With a purple-haired freak hunting out of a saddle.
Love swing. Yep. Uh-huh. I will hang that proudly in my home. Probably in the living room if Robin allows this. Be one of my most prized possessions. Thank you.
You hit all of the nerves there. The drone.
Yeah, I don't see any expandable broadheads.
Yeah, we need a sleeveless shirt.
Yeah.
Mechanical broadhead. Yep.
Well, I listened to practically every podcast, and that was a little combination that I came up with.
Well, it's absolutely beautiful. I love it. Thank you. Happy Valentine's Day to you too.
Your gift is not a charitable contribution through Lester's feet. I'm sorry.
And the drone does not lift it, so it's but I did have a question.
Okay.
So if you do consulting, so since when, I guess through the rumor mill, I heard this, since when did you start, if you consult on a property, you see something that you like as a good idea, that you start selling it as your own? I've heard of this particular guy in your neck of the woods that doesn't want you on his property because he's got buck beds made with 55-gallon drums or something. He said, you're going to sell his idea as yours. I said, well, I'll have to ask him how long he's been selling other people's ideas.
Well, I have no idea what you're talking about, but if anybody wants to buy some 55-gallon drums, I got them for $100 a piece. How many you want?
None.
I think they were probably, what they used to use those for over in the mountains? Would they have roosters in them for for chicken fights?
Yep.
That's what it used to be when you saw all those half-cut 55-gallon, so deer bed in them, huh?
Yeah, I don't have any original ideas of my own. I've been doing this for 50 years just on other people's ideas. I spend all my time on the internet trying to steal as many ideas as I can, and it's made me rich, so not really.
Sarcasm at its finest. Go ahead.
Question for both of you guys. So topography in my area is very steep. Terrain's very abrupt, a lot of ridge tops. Access, I knows everything. So when doing TSI work and trying to make the ridge tops thicker, do you believe that those bucks are bedding in the thickness or right on the fringe of it? Because I feel like they still want to be able to see what's below them. So can you elaborate on that as far as for access purposes if you're coming in from the bottom versus coming in from the top? So.
Well, bucks absolutely use terrain to their advantage, and when they bed, you know, they typically, in rough terrain like you've described, they typically want to bed on ridge points a lot is ideal, and where they can look out, you know, over the bottom. I think Wes Delks just posted a photo the other day of a buck bed, and didn't you find a couple of sheds in that bed, Wes? Yeah, so he found two sheds up on this ridge top, and where that bed was at, that buck could see anytime the hunter came and went on that property, he could see it, and that's the type of bedding situation that a mature buck looks like anyway. When I'm consulting on a property that's got a lot of rough terrain like that, you know, we're only doing not hinge cuts, but TSI work, and that on the top of the ridge and down maybe a third of the way. And that's where we're concentrating our efforts, because that's where the buck wants to bed, because it's to his advantage. But you make a great point. He wants to use his eyes and his nose, and if he can find a vantage point where, you know, he's using the wind to cover one direction and his eyes to cover the other direction, that's ideal. And that's what they look for, not only in rougher terrain like you described, but also in flatter terrain like where I live.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for your question.
So Don, this is a question about how we should respond to your haters. I work with some people that maybe don't appreciate all your points. I value your values. I believe that in today's world, your values system is very good. And so do you want us to defend you when people start talking trash about you, or should we just kind of shut up and just bear with you?
Well, I appreciate you bringing that point up, and I appreciate you thinking enough of me to, apparently you have defended me in the past.
I tried to.
If you'd asked me a few years ago, I'd say punch him in the nose, but you know, I can say this, that I've recognized that any critic is someone that's doing less. And I think I just read a quote today by Bobby Worthington. If you haven't got Bobby's new book, I read this quote in his book, and he said, a lot of people think that love is the strongest human emotion, but he does not think so. He thinks jealousy is the strongest emotion. It causes rational people to do irrational things. And I can't remember the exact quote, but it's in his book. And you know what? It does bother me to some degree, especially when there's absolutely no truth to a lot of the things that are being said. But, you know, my suggestion, I guess, to you is to, you know, just say you don't believe that that's true. And I've actually started on the internet, when I see somebody criticizing me, I just say a prayer for them, and then I block them so I never have to see them again. But I mean, that's probably the best thing. They don't realize that I think that how hurtful some of their actions are. And the biggest thing for me is, you know, that my family has to see some of that stuff, and I can handle it. I mean, I'll sit in front of a crowd of 1,000 people and let guys like you come up and try to put me on the spot. And there's been a time or two where there's been a couple smart alecks that thought they were going to come up and insult me, but all we can do is pray for them. I'm so blessed that I'm not going to let some hater drag me down. And I've made a decision to use my platform for good and really double down and, not let the haters cause me to do something contrary to that. I know that, where my blessings come from, and I know that most of the people that talk negative about me would love to be in my position. And, I also realize that there's a lot of young people looking up to me, my grandsons, and a lot of others. I can't tell you how many young kids I shook hands with here today. And all I can do is the best I can and not let the haters get me down, because, Satan attacks those who are doing good. And he must see something in me that he doesn't like. And that's why he brings the haters out. But, having people stand up for you when you're not in the room, that's huge. And that means a lot to me. So, if you want to do that, I'm not going to put you on the spot and ask you to do that. But if you want to, it's absolutely appreciated.
Thank you.
For those of you who've followed 260 episodes of our very poor quality rambling and audio or video publication, you guys have seen how we've navigated this, and we've struggled with it, to be honest. Neither one of us were prepared for the support nor the criticism that all of this has brought us. And it's just part of being in the public eye to some degree. We're not famous by any means, but whenever you put yourself out there, there's a few that are just going to try to ruin it. And we really struggled with that early. And somebody asked me today about going back and listening, and I don't go back and listen because I would be embarrassed about how I handled some of those situations, and all we can do is continue to grow. But it's like when somebody makes a nasty comment on YouTube about something I did or said or how I acted or something, and then 3 days later I get a text message from Don's daughter just encouraging you. Or we come to a show like this and see the whole aisle filled up with you guys. I'm not going to let that one guy, we could argue with him, we could punch him in the nose even though we want to, but as long as they're attacking us, I think we're going to just let it roll. You come after our family or say something about that, we got a different problem on our hands. The old Don and the old Terry might come out if it gets to that point, but for right now, we're just trying to learn and go as we get more followers and more haters. It's just part of it. We try to get better people too.
Yeah, I think we've been doing this for about 5 years now or something like that. And I think if you would go back and listen to some of the earlier podcasts and compare them to some of the more recent, I think you can see how Terry and I have matured, as we didn't set out to be role models, but we kind of got cast into that accidentally, and and especially me, I was slow to recognize that there are people that actually look up to me. That wasn't something that I had to live with when I was younger. I felt like people were looking down on me, and then all of a sudden people were looking up to me. That was a transition that took a long time, and it was really hard for me. So we just try to do a better job with each passing year.
It's really cool to have a room of people that wants to come and listen to our garbage.
Yeah.
For lack of better words. So your all's support means more than you know. So.
I have a question in regard to soybeans, specifically the difference between a raw soybean out of the field and a roasted soybean. I know you've different times recommended a roasted soybean for a feed mix. But could you explain how it affects a deer differently from when they're eating it out of the field or out of a food plot versus a roasted soybean in a feeder?
Great question.
Yeah, so a raw soybean is not as digestible as a roasted soybean. And also roasting that soybean changes the nutrient content a little bit. So yeah, deer are going to eat raw soybeans out in the field all the time. but you can actually increase the nutrient value and the palatability of those soybeans by roasting them, and that's why we do that in the feed.
Okay, that makes.
So I'm gonna add a different phase of your question for you before you move on and let him ask, what does cracking it do? Because it's not just roasting it, but rolled or cracked soybeans, Don. What does that do?
It just makes it easier to digest for the animal to digest, so it's not that bigger.
Had to tee one up for you there.
Awesome.
So a raw soybean is not going to hurt a deer if you put it in a feeder, but they're very likely not going to go after it as much as a roasted soybean.
Yeah, a roasted soybean's way more palatable, but they'll eat the raw soybean just as well.
Thank you.
Just a question for you, Don. What are 5 reasons, or not necessarily 5 reasons, but not to use a saddle on public land? That's, I'm not, I'm not against using other stuff, but I use a saddle. Just a question,
Wedgies.
I'm not against the saddle either. I don't care what somebody else uses. It just seems to me like that thing would be pretty uncomfortable after hanging there for 2 or 3 hours. I don't have any reason not to use one on public land. I never will, but if it works for you, it works for you. Go for it.
I think we need to make a full disclaimer here. Neither one of us have ever been in a saddle. As much as we joke about it, neither one of us have ever tried it. But it's just like anything else. You find what your niche is, what you like, what you have confidence in, and you do it. Yep. And when you think about the entire podcast, our consultant work, there is nothing about any of our philosophy that we talk about 90% of the time that mobility plays a factor. We're setting up stands in the off season. We're changing habitat. We're creating pinch points on properties and managed properties. Now, when he goes in and hunts public, that's a different story, but most of our content is about how to manipulate and manage farms. The saddle doesn't really align with that. For you guys that are out chasing public, I think it's a fantastic thing that you don't have to worry about your stand getting stolen. You can pick whatever tree you're in. I would just end up hanging upside down probably with the thing wrapped around my neck. My wife is back there. We use supplemental insurance as another revenue stream. That's how much I get hurt and am at urgent care. So I don't want to be hanging from a tree from a rope.
Yeah, thanks. Yep, answer my questions.
Thank you.
I got a food plot question. I have about 20 acres in central Michigan that I plant with a variety of your Deadly Dozen and your corn and all that stuff. I'm having trouble though with beans, getting them to grow. I had about 7 acres I planted. The deer just wiped them out. Is there anything? I have ag around with beans as well. I was wondering if there's anything I can do to get them to grow, because they literally just it was dirt out there. They took them out right away.
Well, a couple things. One, you can increase the seeding rate. I've heard of people seeding up to 100 pounds per acre. I typically plant about 70 in my plots, 70 pounds per acre. The other thing is you can put a fence around it. I know when you start talking 7 acres, that's a lot of fence and a lot of work. I have never personally used a fence around one of my plots, but I've been on a lot of consulting clients' properties where they have, and I know they work just based on what everyone has told me. So that would be your 2 options.
Okay. Thank you.
Hold on a second. Talk a little bit about around you. It says there other ag around you?
Yep, there's beans and corn mostly.
Have you ever tried planting your soybeans about 2 weeks after or 3 weeks after the farmers plant their beans around you?
I usually do it right when they're doing theirs.
Okay, so something to think about and try. One of the things that we've talked about in the past is wait for them to plant, and that germination of their beans is going to pop up, and that's going to disperse the deer out across all those big open ag fields, and you're going to be lagging behind it, and the deer will be dispersed over all of those other open fields, and it might take enough pressure off of your field versus everything coming right in next to your bedding, and they eat in there because it's the easiest.
Gotcha.
So delay behind the row crop farmers and let them push out further. Maybe it'll work.
Perfect. Thank you.
That's a Dwayne Hopkins tip. Dwayne's over here in the front row over on the left side of the room, so patent pending to Dwayne Hopkins on that friendly reminder. And
I had a quick question for Dawn. I was hunting the biggest buck I had on trail cam, and I got a little antsy and ran up into the woods where I knew he'd be coming in and out of, and he winded me about 10 or 5 yards away. Do you think I'll ever have a chance of seeing him again?
Yeah, I think you'll have a chance to see him again, but probably not from that location. Yeah, anytime I get busted from a particular stand by a target buck, I know it's over for that stand. I still may kill that buck, but it's not going to be there. If he comes through again, he's going to be looking for you. He's probably only going to come through when the wind's to his advantage. So he's going to be looking for you with both his eyes and his nose. And if he detects you, he's just going to turn around and leave. But if you're not there, yeah, he may come through. But he's going to be looking for you every time he comes through that spot.
All right, well, thank you.
Yeah, good luck.
all right, as we get ready for the next questions, we got to wrap up questions. So if you want to ask one, you better get up here. We got to do our auction for Lester's feet here in a couple minutes. So make your way up here if you want to get a question in.
Yeah, my question for you, Don. How common is it for, say, a 4-year-old buck when he goes from 4 to 5 and he loses 10, 20 inches antlers? How common is it for him to gain that back as a 6-year-old?
Well, it's not very common for a buck to lose inches from 4 to 5. I've got to wonder why he's lost those inches. Was he injured? Did we have a bad growing season, a drought, or something like that? So it's not real common. And if he does, depending on why he lost those inches, there's a really good chance he could bounce back and put those inches right back on between 5 and 6.
Okay, I said from 4 to 5, but I was thinking from 3 to 4. Same way.
Yeah, it applies the same way.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So we've got a neighbor that is a farmer and cannot stand deer. How do you keep peace with that neighbor? He wants to have crop damage tags, shoot them with rifles in the middle of the summer. How do you work with that farmer? Obviously, our goals are definitely different than that. How would you work with that?
Well, do you own your property, or you lease it, or you own it?
It's owned, and he's the farmer next to us.
Yeah.
The crop field next to us.
Well, depending on what he's shooting, I mean, I see lots of properties where there are too many does. And actually, my property has gotten that way, and I had to shoot a bunch this year. So if he's helping you control the doe herd, he's probably actually doing something good, positive. There's probably a bunch of people in here expecting me to say build a fence, and that's another option. But, I would try to work with him and get him to focus his attention on the does and leave the bucks alone. I don't know if you can do that. I know these guys, some of these farmers are pretty serious about their crops and may not want to work with you at all and tell you to mind your own business, but at least it's a start.
And he said he doesn't shoot anything but does, but he's the type of farmer that if he shoots them and they run in the woods, then he's not going out to the effort to go tag them. So if he has 10 tags, he said he doesn't know how many are actually dead. But
well, and something else to consider is I want to see some hunting pressure around the property. So if I'm consulting on a property, a lot of times I've had a client say, man, I'm in a great area because there's no hunting over here, and there's an old lady that owns this piece over here, and she don't allow any hunting, and these people rarely hunt. Well, then it makes it really hard for you to set your property apart from those others. Having pressure around you makes it a lot easier. You can teach the deer that, hey, my property is the safest place in the neighborhood, especially the mature bucks are going to catch on to that, and they're going to realize that, hey, when the sun's up and it's daylight, I need to be on this property because I don't encounter danger here. And that's really one of the foundational pieces of our management approach when we go and consult on properties.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We got anybody else in line?
Okay. So my question is probably just for me. It's not really going to help anybody else, but my situation is my grandpa bought 80 acres of woods. 20 acres of it is ag, and me and a couple of my cousins hunt it, and my cousins hunt totally different than I do. They're just, if it's brown, it's down, and I don't really like to hunt that way. So my proposal to them was to divide it right in half, so they hunt 40 acres and I hunt 40 acres. And I was curious what I could do to keep deer on my 40 acres. There's not really going to be anything that can just divide our land. I mean, it's just going to have to be, a line that we draw. What can I do to keep bucks from, obviously I can't keep it, it's not under my control, but what's a good technique I can use?
Well, I think the big question is how to keep your cousins on their own side, because the better you make yours, the more they're going to come over there. But I don't have a good answer for that. I mean, if there's some kind of physical feature on the property that you could use as a dividing line, for example, if there was a fence or a creek or an access road or something like that, where you could take one side of it and they take the other, then that's a totally different situation. And when we try to set up sanctuaries when we're consulting, we are often looking for physical features, and sometimes we create them, but physical features around the border of that sanctuary, so a deer knows, hey, every time I jump this fence, I never encounter danger, never encounter human scent or people, or every time I cross this creek, I never encounter danger on this side of the creek, or this old logging road, I never encounter danger on this side of the logging road. So when we're setting up sanctuaries, we're trying to look for some sort of a physical feature around the edge of that sanctuary. And on your property, if there's some physical feature that separates or divides in half, well then you're set. If there's not, it's going to be really difficult.
Gotcha. Well, that helps. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
One more over there? Okay.
Yeah, it's for you, Don. I was just wondering, something you learned in your whole hunting career, what would you tell a 20-year-old, one of the greatest things you learned in all your years of hunting?
As far as tactics for big bucks, or just anything?
Woodsmanship skills or something like that.
Well, when it comes to big deer, you got to hunt them where they're at. And they're not going to be where there's a lot of human activity. So location, location, location. And then once you find where these bucks are at, I learned this the hard way because I ruined more properties years ago than that I can even remember. Once you find a good property, or you got a good situation where there's mature bucks on it, year after year, be very conservative and don't ruin it, don't burn it out. I'm probably the most conservative deer hunter you're ever going to meet as far as putting pressure on a property. And I think I don't think most deer hunters recognize how little human activity it takes to bump a mature buck. And I tell all my consulting clients that if you want to kill big deer consistently, we got to get them bedded on your property. If they're bedded one property over from your property, your odds of killing that deer are 10% what they are if he's on your property. So you got to hunt them where they bed, and once you find where they bed, you got to be very conservative so you don't bump him off. If you bump him off, it's over. If you stay out on the edge and play it conservative, you can hunt all season long, and sooner or later that buck's probably going to mess up and you're going to get a shot. But run in and try to hunt him in the middle of the property, boom, he's gone, and you're done for the season.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So my question's for both of you. I'm 23 and I'm looking into getting my own property, me and my girlfriend. Is there any key things that you would say I should look for, or obviously water, stuff like that?
Well, the biggest key is probably isolation. So if your property sits out away from other wooded cover or cover of any kind really, maybe surrounded by open ag fields, what surrounds a property is way more important than what's on it. We can change what's on the property, but you can't change what's around it on neighboring properties. So you guys might have, I think I mentioned on the last podcast, I consulted on a property in Illinois that was on 3 sides of that property was a 10,000 acre sanctuary where no hunting was allowed. Well, it's going to be easy for that guy to kill giants consistently. So look at what's around the property instead of what's on it. The other thing I would suggest is don't go into debt too deep. Start with a smaller property that you can easily afford, and then you can either add acreage around it to make it bigger later, or flip that property once you get it paid for and developed, flip it and then take that money and go buy a bigger one. But don't put your family or anything else, your finances at risk over a hunting property. Do what you can afford and move on. Joe Miles and I were talking earlier today, had a conversation, and we were both saying, how funny, both of him and I would like to slow down a little bit, but we've spent decades getting this train rolling for our businesses to the point where now we're afraid to pump the brakes. And we were both talking, like, you really start making good money in life in your 50s, and especially after mid-50. And you can talk to just about anybody that owns a business, and when you start a business, you're typically starting in debt, and then you get to the point where you're out of debt, but a lot of the money you're making is going to run that business. Just realize that you're in it for the long haul. Don't try to go out and buy a 500-acre property and grow 200-inch deer right out of the gate. Work towards that, because I can easily remember when I was 23 years old. It may look like it's been a long time ago, and it was, but there's been, my dreams have just been blown out of the water. God has just made its reality so much bigger, and I just would caution you to be patient and do what you can afford to do.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, we're going to we got to transition some camera spots. Is it Mr. Miller is our auctioneer? I'm going to ask him to come up. Our friends from Lone Wolf need to come up front. And I need, let's see, Dan, Austin, Trace, and Kaylin. I need all of you all to come up over here to help me with the auction when we get a winner. I got to talk to you about what we need you to do as we prepare for this. So give us a break. Get the cameras so we can, are we okay right here in the center, Steve? Okay. So give me one break and let me talk to them, and come on up. Okay, so as we've been talking the last couple weeks, we got some charity auctions here tonight. And what we've been talking about is Don had the idea on the podcast that he wanted to raffle off his Mathews bow. You guys remember the story of this bow. Mathews tuned this thing. He was on the early release. It showed up in a box. He shot it and said, oh, this thing shoots good. I'm going to go hunt with it. And then he kills a 190 plus buck with it that night. So I said, well, hey, I killed a good buck this year. We'll auction that off. And then, I'm going to auction off a set of books. Well, then today, Joe Miles brings our friend from Lone Wolf Custom Gear over, and they said, we want in too. So there's actually a fourth thing that we're going to auction off tonight. And I got my cheat sheet here. So Lone Wolf has donated basically a full setup of your choice. So he's brought some just basic samples of climbers. They got tree saddles that I know Don and I would love to come over and try. No, not really, but he puts basically this package could be valued at over $1,100 for what you pick out. So again, we're going to do an auction here for charity tonight, and we did one of these in Mount Hope. And what's the thing to remember in a charity auction, people? Competition is the best thing ever. We want you to be extremely competitive, right? Nobody's looking for a bargain tonight. Every dollar that you bid and win tonight goes to help a family, okay? Remember that. Lester's Feet Foundation identifies family who are navigating a sick or injured child where there is a reduced income, and our board vets that out. We qualify the family, we get the need of what the financial need is, and we pay that bill on behalf of the family so that they can focus on that child. And if you guys remembered last year, we started the Andrea Hamilton Fund in addition to that. So now we're helping families who are navigating where the mother or wife is getting breast cancer and not able to work. So your dollars spent here today on these 4 lots are 100% donated by these people, but most importantly, 100% going to help a family. So I'm going to turn it over. Give a hand to Mr. Miller. He's donated his time to do this. And again, our first lot is going to be from our friends at Lone Wolf Custom Gear. You will go back to their booth and pick out whatever you want, and he'll take care of you.
Okay, just like Terry said, and we're going to have a few guys out here that whoever's the winning bidder, they're going to be walking out to you and getting your names, and of course they'll get with you as far as where the funds are going to go. Don, we didn't talk about your drone. Are we going to be selling that too?
If the gentleman that gave it to me is okay.
Just kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's for a good cause.
Anyways, hey, like you said,
give me 10,000.
On the nice Lone Wolf gear, absolute nice outfit there. Just like Terry said, it's all going to go for a good cause. So hop in, help yourselves, and ready to go there. All right, on the good old outfit there. How about turning it about there? 1,500. At 15, turning it about there. 1,500. How about $1,000? Turning it about there. 1,000 bid. And now 1,000 bid. Turning it about there. $1,000. Turning it about there. 500. How about 500 at there? 75. 7.5. At 750 bid. Turning it about there. 5. 600 at there. 600 to get about there. 600 bid. And now 6, 7. How about 700? And now 800 at there. 9. How about 9? Now $1,000 bid. 11 at there. Now 10. 11 at there. To get about there. 11 bid. And now 1,100. Anybody else in the crowd? 1,100. At $1,000 here. How about $1,100 here? It's all going for good cause. Keep that in mind. 1,100 at $1,000. 1,100 at there. Anybody else in the crowd? 1,100 at there. Now quarter get about there. Anybody else right there? One more time right there. 9. Solar right down there. $1,000 here. Right there in the third row. We're going to see him down there. Thank you, buddy boy. You bet. Many thanks to Lone Wolf. Absolutely. Thank you, guys. Right over here. Yep, third row there. Thank you. Okay, the next deal we got coming is from Don Higgins himself. He's got 2 books here. You're buying both books for the money right here. All right, on the good old nice outfit here. How about here? How about 500? How about 500 to go right there? And now 5, 3 at $300 here. How about 3, 1, 3 right there to get about there. 300 at there, 3. How about 3, 4? How about 4? Now 5. And now $500 here. Now 600 at there. Now 5. Now 600 right there. Now $700 here. And now 7 bid to get about there. 700. And now 800 at 78. Now 8. Now 9.8. 9 bid. And now 9 to get about there. 900 at there. Anybody else right there? 900 bid. 900, how to get about there? 850. All right, 850. Heard to get about there. 8.5. How about 850 bid? Head to the bills right there. $850 right there. 850 right there. 9. Solar on the outside corner. $800 back there in the corner. Thank you. Thank you, Don, for the nice set of bucks here. Okay, now we're getting into the sweet spots here, guys. All right, you heard him right here. Terry, I forget again the model of this.
So this is a Mathews lift, 29.5-inch draw. If it does not fit your draw length, you can get new modules for it and change it. But this has the quad fall-away rest. It has the 5-pin fiber optic sight, the 1-piece quick detach quiver, the dovetail stabilizer, and the stand. So this thing decked out new would run probably about $2,300–2,400. So all ready to shoot, shoots laser beams, even with me shooting it.
Wow. All right, you heard him there. All right there. How much right there? 70 get 3,500 at 35. We're get about there. 35. 70 get 2. Roll the ball there. How about $2,000? We're get about there. 2 bid. And now 2. How about $1,000 here? How about 1,000 bid? Who wants to be first in the crowd? And now 15 at 1,000. 12.5. How about 12.50 right there? 10 now. 12.50. We're get about there. 12.50 bid. And now 10. 12.5. We're get about there. 1,250. We're get about there. 10 now. 12 now. 15 that there. 15 will buy. And now 17, and now 2. How about 2,000 right there? Heard to get about there, 2 bid. And now 17.5, 1,800. At 17.5, now 18, 18, 18. Heard to get about there, 18 right there, 17.50. Now 18, now heard to get about there, 18 bid. And now 18, heard to get about there, 19. At 18, now 19 right there, 18, 19. Heard to get about there, 19 bid. Anybody else in the crowd right there? So once in a life opportunity there. 1,900, 18, 1,900.
We'll sweeten the pot up. We'll get all of the legends to sign this before you take it home. How about that? We'll sweeten the pot a little bit.
Absolutely, it'll always keep its value. 1,800 on the left side. 19, head of the deals right there. 1,900, 18, 19 right there. 19, 70, 19 bid. 19 right there. Heard to get about there. 19 bid. And on 19, heard to get about there. Head of the deals in the crowd. 18, 19 right there. 19 bid. Head of the deals right there. One more time right there. 9. Solar, right down there, 1800. Right down here on the left side, straight away. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Yep, right over here, the cap there. Okay, Don, you got something to say about yours?
Yeah, this is the new Lift X that was just released by Mathews in November. They sent me this one in October. The day I got it, I went out and shot it. Shot so well, that evening I shot Zacchaeus, the buck that you guys probably seen in Whitetail Life magazine. It's already set up with the fall away rest, Mathews rest, and quiver. I took my 1960 sight off of it and kept that because I can't find them anymore. But ready to go. Screw your sight on and start shooting.
There you go. All right, the last opportunity tonight to help out the Lester Feet benefit here. All right there, how about turning it about there? Somebody get 3,500 at 3,500. How about 35? Hurting it about there too. How about 2,000 at hurting it about there? 2,000 bid. And now 2 hurting it about there too. At TB2. How about 1,500? How about 15? 1750 right there. 15, 17 hurting it about there. 1750 bid. And now 17. Now 2, 1, 2 hurting it about 2. Now 22 and a half. Now 25 at there. 27 and a half bid. And now 3. How about 3? 32, 50. And now 35 hurting it about there. 37 and a half. Now 4, 1, 4, B4, to get about there, 4,000 right there, 37, how about 4,000 bid? And now 4, to get about there, 4, how about 3,800 at 37, 3,800, to get about there, 3,800 right there, to get about there, 30 bid. Now 39, and now 39, now 4, 4 B4, to get about there, 4, now 41 over right there, 41, now 41, 2 right there, 42 over there, and now 42, to get about there, 42, to get about there, 41, 2, head to middle right there, 41, 2, to get about there, 2, 2, and now 41, 2, head to middle right there, guys, you do what you do, but that thing will always hold its value. It came right from down there, 41, 4,200. You do what you do. 41, 2. At 42. Head to the middle right there. 42. Now 3. And now 4. And now 5. 45, 47 and a half. Now 5,000 bid. 52, 50. And now 52 and a half. Forget about there. 52, 50. 52 and a half. Forget about there. 52, 50. And now 52 and a half. Head to the middle right there. 52, 51. One more time. And now 51. Forget about there. Head to the middle right there. 51. Right there, 9. Solar down there, 5,000 bucks here, right there on the left side. Thank you. Thank you, Don, for donating a nice piece there. Thank you. I think
he needs a free pastry with that bow.
I'll sign it, but it'll make it worth less.
Just stay up here. We're going to close out. No, you're fine. You can stay too. I don't care. We might get you to answer a question while you're here. Guys, you don't know how special you make us feel. Stand up here. I feel weird.
Chasing Giants with Terry Peer.
No.
And Don Higgins.
The other way around. Think about what we just did. We get together and talk about an animal that we spend too much money on every fall that maybe or maybe not our wives know about, and spend way too much time. But we come here and we walk around a trade show hall, and I don't know what the total number. Dan, do you know what the total number between all of that just added up to? Did anybody keep track of that? Somewhere around, we just raised probably around $10,000 for a family that has a sick child or a mother and a wife navigating breast cancer. $8,800. You guys are awesome. Give yourselves a round of applause. I know I can speak for so many of you in here that it's not just about who's on the stage or who's in the seats, but it's about what we do with every aspect of our life and what we're called to do. And I started getting into a habit many years ago when we got in front of these crowds, and I asked Derek if it was all right when we ended the Legends Roundtable last year, if we encouraged everybody before we left. And even though we want to make you all better deer hunters, we want to make you all better young men, better husbands. And we can't do that if you don't have a relationship with Jesus. So wherever you all are at tonight, with whatever demons or struggles or issues you have, Don and I are not perfect people by any means. But when we gather a bunch of people here and just put things in perspective about how we just raised that much money for a family in need, and we don't put things in perspective and offer an opportunity for anyone who's struggling to lean on another Christian for help and support, we're doing the wrong thing. So I encourage you tonight as we end this podcast and we go off and go our separate ways. I hope you're coming back for the other events the rest of the week. But if you're struggling with something or you have questions about whatever you're dealing with in your life, grab one of us. Grab one of the members of Lester's, the board members. They're all here. We got a bunch of friends that are willing to talk to you. That's the most important thing we can do. We can use every aspect of our life to encourage each other, help each other, and most of all, share the good news of Jesus. So as we close out the podcast tonight, thank you guys so much. Make sure you come up and look at the new 360 Chasing Giants blind. It'll be here this evening. Get back out on the show hall. Look at your vendors out there. Go to the Cloverleaf booth. Put a bid in for it. And I'm going to close this with a word of prayer. Father God, we thank you so much for such a wonderful, beautiful creation that you gave us, that we can spend time in and hunt these animals, the white-tailed deer. It's challenging, it's stressful, it's emotional, but it's drawn us all together that hopefully we can do a greater thing than just talk about deer hunting, and that's either help folks that need our help or encourage one another if we have someone struggling in this room tonight. Father, I pray that each of us will look at where we're at today and find out what can we do better to be a better servant in the name of your Son. I pray that everyone will have safety as they travel tonight and hopefully come back tomorrow. But thank you so much for you sending your Son Jesus. And it's in his name we pray. Amen.
God bless everyone. Have a great week.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to Sunday Night Prayer Time here on Chasing Giants TV. My name is Wes, and I am currently sitting at one of my favorite places on our property here. This is a bridge that my son and I built about a year and 3 months or so ago, and it's one of my favorite places, certainly for the nostalgia of this bridge that my son and I built, but also for just the fact that it's just an incredibly rich place for me to come out and enjoy God's creation. So I've got the stream, I've got the creek right here, I've got trees, I've got birds to listen to. It's just a really peaceful, serene spot. And the reason that I came down here today is because a few days ago I was reading a little devotional, and it got me thinking about what I wanted to share with y'all. So the devotional had something to do with rocks in a stream. I really can't remember. I remember the gist of it, but I can't remember exactly what it said. But it got me thinking about what I wanted to share with y'all, and I want to start off with Job 5:7. So Job 5:7 says that man is born to trouble as surely as sparks fly upward. Man is born to trouble as surely as sparks fly upward. Now, how many times have you been sitting around a campfire and you see those sparks that come out of the fire from the wood? You see those sparks fall straight down to the ground. You've never seen that because that really doesn't happen. Sparks always fly upward. And that's what Job is saying here. Man will experience trouble in life just as surely as sparks fly upward. But I want to give us some encouragement today that those troubles are not for nothing. So I'm down at the creek right here, and the rocks that are in the creek, there's all different shapes and sizes of rocks, but I want us to look at this one. I just took this one out of the creek, and it's not exactly the smoothest rock that I could have found. There's probably older rivers in the world that have much smoother rocks, but if you look at it, you can see the edges are quite rounded. There's no jagged or pointy spots on it to speak of, and the reason that this rock is so smooth excuse me, is because it's been sitting in this creek for a very long time. And as it sits in this creek, every now and then a grain of sand floats by and just kind of nicks it just a little bit. And every time that happens, a little tiny piece of this rock, probably so small that we'd have to use a microscope to see it, a little tiny piece of this rock gets knocked off. And as the centuries go by, this happens over and over and over and over and over again. And we could say that that could spell trouble for this rock, right? But actually what's happening is it's smoothing this rock over. And that's very similar to what we see in Scripture. So the process of us being made more like Jesus Christ in the Bible is called sanctification. And for those of us who have repented of our sins, have come to a saving knowledge of Jesus Christ, have put our trust in Jesus Christ, God's only Son, to not only save us from hell, but to make us into people that give God more glory, that process is called sanctification. And it's very similar to what we see with this rock. Things in life come along and they hit us, right? And that may not, if this rock could talk, it would probably say that every time a piece of sand hits it, it's probably not particularly comfortable. And that's what we see with suffering in our own lives. It's not comfortable at all. But I want to encourage us today that these sufferings that we experience in life are not for nothing. They are doing something. John Piper years ago had that little clip where he said suffering, it's not for nothing. It's doing something. It's not meaningless, right? And I want to encourage you today to remember that it's not meaningless. It may hurt. It may sting. It may make you want to give up trusting in God altogether because it's so difficult and you don't see any relief in sight. And I must admit that I'm guilty of that temptation myself. But I want to encourage you that it is indeed doing something. John Piper again said we may not see what it's doing, but we can't see what it's doing. We can just trust God that it's doing something for our good and His glory. I want to read something from Malachi, and of course, in context, this applied to the nation of Israel. However, it applies to us as well. Malachi 3:6 says, I, the Lord, do not change, so you, the descendants of Jacob, are not destroyed. Ever since the time of your ancestors, you have turned away from my decrees and have not kept them. Return to me, and I will return to you, says the Lord Almighty. So what I want to focus on there is this. So you, the descendants of Jacob, are not destroyed. The nation of Israel went through some pretty horrible things in the Old Testament. They were captured, they were plundered, lots of bad things happened to them. But they were never destroyed. They were never destroyed. God's purpose is not to destroy us. God's purpose is to refine us. God's purpose is to make us people who give God more glory, to make us more useful people that we might give Him glory. So guys, when you're down, when you're having trouble, and troubles will come, think about the rock in the stream. Think about the rock in the stream. I read something recently from Charles Spurgeon. It was a really wonderful devotion in his in the morning and evening collection, and it said that when suffering, he had a scale there. It said when suffering comes along, the other side of the scale is balanced out with God's grace. And what's difficult to understand about that is when we don't have that suffering, God's grace is lessened as well because we don't rely on Him as much. We can rely on ourselves when we're not having trouble, right? But when there's suffering, we're forced to rely on God. So think about the scale. When suffering comes along and that side of the scale gets very, very weighty, we have God's grace as well. So that's my encouragement to you today. I hope that that gives you some encouragement. It certainly encourages me in my own walk. And guys, let's go to the Lord in prayer because I know that a lot of us are struggling, a lot of us are suffering, and we need prayer every single day of the week. Let's go to the Lord in prayer. Lord God, we come to you and we admit that we are broken and struggling people who suffer. And when we suffer, we get incredibly tempted to say it's meaningless, it's for nothing, this is pointless, the whole thing is just useless. But God, we know from your word that it's not. We know from your word that you have not created us to destroy us. God, you hold the waters in your hands, you own the cattle on 1,000 hills, you clothe the birds of the air, you feed them, and you clothe the lilies of the field, which are here today and they're gone tomorrow. And how much more value do we have in your eyes than a flower or a bird? So Lord, I want to pray for your grace for myself, for all the listeners out there this evening, that they would understand, that I would understand how much you do truly love us and that our sufferings are not for nothing. Lord, that we would be diligent to come to you in fervent prayer and lift our struggles up to you, not necessarily that you would remove these struggles from us, but that we would be able to say that your grace is sufficient in these struggles. Lord, I want to pray specifically for those out there with health issues this evening. Lord God, for grace for them, for healing, for that they would look to you during this time of suffering, for those going through financial troubles, relationship issues, job troubles. Lord, even church troubles, churches that are possibly going through potential splits. Lord, I want to lift all of these issues up, that you would give grace, that you would give mercy, that you would help us in our time of need, and that we would remember that even though we are poor and needy, you take thought for us, as Psalm 40:17 says. God, I pray that this week we would go out and that we would do the things that you have called us to do with faithfulness. As the song says, may all who come behind us find us faithful, that you would bring us back together next week, and that I just want to pray for your grace on all of us. Lord, we're desperate for you, and we love you. In Christ's name, amen. Guys, try to find a stream this week. Try to find some place in the woods to go out and just check out the rocks and the birds and the trees. It's good for your soul. I'll see y'all next time. Thank you for watching.